One look in his room, and investigators become even more suspicious.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at true tragedies that eerily parallel the events of pre-existing horror films, whether by coincidence or through mimicry.
It was always on, it got hit by lightning. 3 days later, David Seltzer was on the same flight. His plane was hit by lightning.
Bath Salt's Zombie, 28 days later. Danny Boyle's post-apocalyptic masterpiece perfected the formula of the fast zombie. 28 days later felt horrifyingly feasible in its concept of a virus that drives people into an unthinking violent frenzy.
Jimmy's infected!
It didn't even take that to put Rudy Eugene in such a state. In 2012, the Miami man was filmed attacking Ronald Popo, cannibalizing much of his face before police shot Eugene dead. Though they suspected a designer street drug dubbed bath salts, the exact reason for the breakdown was never determined. There have still been multiple violent incidences involving bath salts. The outbreak is thankfully more contained than the internet and Boyle's gruesome visions. Still, with Eugene dead and Popo left completely blind, the horror is much too real.
But that's not who I know. He was very sweet and very affectionate to me and my children, so.
Girl Kidnapping. Misery. Stephen King's hostage thriller, Misery, was masterfully adapted into a cautionary tale about entitled fandom.
I don't want her dead! I want her! And you murdered her!
In 2015, an incident in California's South Lake Tahoe marked an even more sobering indictment of society. Once distinguished lawyer Matthew Muller decided to ransom evil rich people for charity after being disbarred over severe mental illness. One victim was physical therapist Denise Huskins, whom Muller kidnapped and sexually assaulted in a remote cabin. When he released Huskins, police scandalously suspected that her story was a hoax. The media naturally hearkened to the then recent David Fincher caper Gone Girl.
You can stop pretending now.
I'm not pretending. You are perfect.
More apt comparisons to Annie Wilkes were made when Muller was apprehended following a home invasion 2 months later. He was ultimately served justice for his own twisted entitlement, despite people's reluctance to believe his victim.
But Denise Huskins and Aaron Quinn's story is so far from the fictional plot.
Green River Camping Trip. Cabin fever. Eli Roth first unleashed his sick mind for realistic horror with a cabin holiday being spoiled by a flesh-eating bacteria.
Are you alright? I'm sick.
Reports of this nightmare scenario in other ecosystems have long gotten under the public's skin. Finally, in 2019, Jonathan Metcalf found the actual cabin fever in Kentucky's Green River. Actually, his family stayed outdoors during their Memorial Day camping trip, which was cancelled when Metcalf began experiencing horrible pain in his lower body.
Never would have crossed my mind that something like this could have hit me. It's something you see on Facebook.
The doctor diagnosed him with a bacteria which required partial amputation of his thigh. Metcalf ultimately got lucky, although Roth's ultra-gory version of necrotizing fasciitis is an exaggerated extreme. Still, if cabin fever doesn't tell you to be careful on a camping trip, then Metcalf would.
I need a doctor.
Pig Farmer Killer, Texas Chain Saw Massacre series. Despite its highly publicized basis in true crime cases like Ed Gein, the Texas Chain Saw Massacre franchise is just a terrible fantasy about the perils of the backroads. That fantasy was found to be reality in rural British Columbia in 2002. After Robert Pickson's arrest, it came out that he had spent several years abducting women from the Vancouver area, then murdering and butchering them at his family farm.
Women would disappear, and hardly anyone noticed.
The gruesome story of the pig farmer killer was sensationalized in the media as the kind of horror usually associated with Leatherface. Picton was killed in prison 17 years after being convicted of 6 homicides. At one point, he had bragged about claiming 49 victims. The death of Liz Moore, The Omen. A series of terrible occurrences linked to the Richard Donner's The Omen sparked the myth that the production was cursed.
It was an aura of not being welcomed. I mean, the devil was I really sincerely believe that the devil didn't want the picture to be made.
Perhaps the most eerie tragedy befell Liz Moore after she designed props for the film. 2 months after its release, she and boyfriend John Richardson got into a car accident while working in the Netherlands. Moore was beheaded by a tyre from the other car. This is similar to one of the most shocking deaths in The Omen, in which a truck releases a sheet of glass that decapitates David Warner's character.
He was driving and had a head-on accident and beheaded this girl.
Such ghastly accidents were really supernatural acts to ensure Damien Thorne's destiny as the Antichrist. Moore's death thus convinced superstitious viewers that her colleagues' misfortunes were no coincidence. Certainly, they were all tragic.
We had all these things happen. Are they omens? Because is there something bigger? I say no, it's just incredible coincidence.
Possessions, The Exorcist. Obviously, the existence of demonic possession is ever in dispute. It certainly made for compelling fiction in William Friedkin's genre-defining masterpiece, The Exorcist.
Keep away! The soul is mine!
With the visceral impact it's had through the years, the psychosomatic was inevitable. In 2012, Friedkin told Entertainment Weekly that many viewers later reported being possessed. Jason Miller, who played the Exorcist's assistant, would be stopped in the streets by people wanting him to save their souls.
Could you see her?
Yes, I could. I could see her as a psychiatrist, but I can't see her.
Oh, not a psychiatrist. She needs a priest.
Life also imitated art through Friedkin himself when he witnessed Father Gabriele Amort perform an exorcism in 2016. The so-called Dean of Exorcists alone had dealt with possessions and delusions long before Friedkin's fanbase. And though the filmmaker identified as an agnostic, he believed he saw true evil that day. The Murder of Sharon Gregory, Friday the 13th series. Horror fans have long been obsessed with Jason Voorhees' killing spree, usually of teenagers. The Friday the 13th movies were particularly a favourite of Massachusetts grocery clerk Mark Branch's. Sharon Gregory, a psychology student like Amy Steele's character in Part 2, made this the subject of a profile that ended in tragedy. On October 24, 1988, Branch donned Jason's signature black boots and hockey mask and stabbed Gregory to death.
Branch appears to be most fascinated with Jason, the serial killer who systematically stalked his prey in the movie Friday the 13th.
The killer took his own life shortly thereafter, and the victim's study was never recovered. Branch's act may have been modelled after the movies, but it was clearly the culmination of a lonely youth and mental illness. Sadly, gruesome tragedies such as these are not supernatural.
We knew it was him. We knew him by the clothing that he had on, all of that. Jason, Friday the 13th, he had on all the clothing.
Richard Delmer Boyer, Halloween 2. Much of what makes John Carpenter's Halloween the definitive slasher is its realism. But it was the more far-fetched sequel that entered reality. A year after the film's release, Richard Delmer Boyer of Fullerton, California, recreated a scene in which Michael Myers steals a knife from an elderly couple he decides to spare.
Authorities have confirmed that all three of the victims are teenagers, 2 girls and a boy.
However, Boyer went through with killing Francis and Eileen Harbitz. He later blamed being in the same inebriated condition under which he repeatedly watched Halloween 2. It was the first time a mainstream movie was used as evidence in a US murder trial, but the jury was not convinced that the defendant was an unconscious copycat. In 1992, Boyer was convicted of an earlier murder and labelled a serial killer. Jonathan Cruz, The Purge. Before getting swept up in speculative political thrills, the Purge franchise began with the horror of a crime spree without legal recourse.
Please just let us purge.
Thankfully, the law quickly caught up to Jonathan Cruz in 2017. But the 19-year-old Indianapolis man had already robbed several people and committed 3 murders over the course of 4 days. That far exceeds James DeMonico's version of an annual half-day in which all crime is legal.
I'm just devastated. We were all so close.
Still, Cruz described his actions as purging in social and private media that were investigated after his arrest. He pleaded guilty to the crimes he anticipated answering for. The law was very much in effect during his purge, but that tragically did not stop it.
Cruz will formally be sentenced to life without parole on May 11.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. The Murder of Alison Cambier, Scream franchise. Many fictional copycats in the Scream series are inspired by true crime and horror tropes. The meta-satires have in turn inspired real-life slashers. No! It all began in 1998 when two teenagers killed one of their mothers to steal her money, purchase ghost face masks, and continue their spree. But the closest copycat killing was of Belgian teen Alison Cambier in 2001, when she rejected the advances of 24-year-old neighbour Thierry Jardin. He donned a ghost face mask, stabbed her 30 times, and confessed to her father over the phone.
I want you. It's showtime.
This is just one of several incidences in which disturbed individuals merely modelled their acts after this self-reflexive horror franchise. Of course, it's not unusual for the most twisted fiction to become reality. What do you think of these cases and their place in horror pop culture? Make your observations in the comments.
I feel like I am some character in this crime drama. I'm like in a movie.